Origin Jet, and this is India's 5th gen aircraft, HAL AMCA. AMCA? Yeah, India is developing 5th gen aircraft. I didn't know this, apparently, but yeah, it's been in works for like near a decade now. About a decade. Which is a surprising thing. Nobody told me that, apparently. I've been watching a lot of like aircraft and military style videos recently. We'll talk about common. Nobody said that. But apparently, there you go. I don't know when this is going to be available or something, or like how good it's going to be. I guess 5th gen contenders are like rising, right? What was it, like Israel or something? Was it Israel or was it Turkey? I think it was Turkey, right? Yeah, Turkey. Turkey also made a 5th gen aircraft, if I remember correctly. Japan is doing that as well. Obviously, you already have like USA, China, Russian, right? So where in that spectrum, how good India's 5th gen is going to be, I don't know. It feels like to me that it will be done in a way that they need it to be done. Like when it comes to India, the requirements are different, right? Indians homemade fighter jet might not be best in the like in the world comparatively, but whatever job it's supposed to do, it does it really well. It's really small and things like that. So usually whenever we think about India or anything India might have to go up against is usually China and things like that. So Himalayas is always comes into play. So this plane might have some kind of a job like that. Who knows? It's going to be interesting. Let's do it. This is by the channel Australian Military Aviation History. Name is so long it goes okay. So let's do this one.
In recent months, we have looked at several new 5th gen fighters and how they may revolutionize foreign air forces. The first was the South Korean KAI KF-21, a twin-engine,
Oh yeah, how the fuck? Yeah, how did I forget South Korean ones? Yeah, South Korea is also making 5th gen one or has made it. I don't know, or something like that. South Korea is making a lot of high-end military equipment nowadays with tanks and things like that.
seat multi-role aircraft.
Yeah, so I guess that's why Su-57 deal didn't go through, because they also had like something in a play where India's Sukhoi is also going to help India develop 5th generation, but they canceled that. So obviously they canceled Su-57 deal because they were like trying to make their own. Kind of makes sense, right? India has been that has been the goal of India in recent years, especially after Modi came into power in 2016. Making India has become a really big thing. Like start in that direction type of way. You're not going to just make things like perfect, right? You have to start somewhere. So when it comes to tanks, right, jets also like this, make in India is becoming a big thing, right? That's why there was a big thing with ISRO in recent years, past decade or something, right?
With a lowered radar cross-section. This design outline was presented to the Indian Air Force in 2016. That same year, the Air Force formally accepted the design concept. One of the core goals of the conceptualization phase was to come up with
Indian-American relationship are improving in past decade or so. So what if that's like in the background? America's like, we can't just point blank help you at the global stage. Because many things are preventing us to do, but what if we in the background help you? That's why it looks kind of like F-35 like, who knows?
With an aircraft which could replace the still relatively new Sukhoi Su-30 MKI, the official Indian export variant of Russia's Flanker H. This in itself is a lofty ambition. The latest iterations of the Sukhoi 30 are arguably the best multi-role aircraft produced in the East, save for possible classified projects. In Western terms, the Su-30 would be described as a 4.5th gen fighter, similar to the modernized Super Hornet or Strike Eagle. Thus, the AMCA would be India's equivalent of the F-35, a lighter, more modern alternative to a traditional multi-role aircraft, yet still capable of performing similar missions. The AMCA proposal would have to fulfill several roles, namely air supremacy.
Yeah, anybody would see this and like kind of laugh in the background. I understand. But you need to really understand, like when it comes to, any aviation things, India is really good at it. Look at the ISRO, right? You think what the space agency has to do with, anything like jets and things like that. Aerodynamics, right? If you can put something in the space, right, you have good enough know-how to put, make sure you do really well in sky, right? That's why a lot of NASA always coordinates with the Air Force in USA, right? So ISRO already has a great, insane record in a way when you really think about it. They were, they're like very, failure rate was very less, which surprised a lot of people around the globe. Like, how is that happening? So based on that, with that kind of expertise, India can pull this off, right? Now, I'm not saying it's going to be best of the best or something, but it's going to be decent enough.
Suppression of enemy air defenses, air interdiction, and electronic warfare. Over the next couple of years, the rough design would be fleshed out. It was reported in 2020 by the Eurasian Times that one of the goals was to produce an aircraft which outwardly followed 5th-gen fighter design principles, while internally being equipped with more modern technology, something akin to a 6th-generation fighter. Given the time and difficulty of developing
5.5?
Advanced systems domestically, it was revealed that the AMCA will have 2 initial phases. The first phase, Mark 1, would rely on various foreign systems, while later a Mark 2 variant will feature more advanced internal systems and other domestic...
Why is our brain like that, right? When you see something blacked out like that, oh, that's sick. Why does black look so sick? I guess it's the video games, right? Black implying stealthy. Everybody likes to do stealth mission, right? It's like ninja type of mentality. Like Hitman didn't help that, right? Whenever in Hitman you do some job, nobody sees you, like they gives you special report there. I don't know, was it Silent Assassin, something like that? So basically those things, like, oh, look at that stealth black, looks cool.
Produced technology. The aircraft's basic outward appearance of the airframe would be familiar, sporting proven low radar cross-section design principles. Hindustan Aeronautics noted that their current twin tailplane design has a drastic effect on radar signature, in addition to other features such as an airframe composed of 30 to 40% composite radar-absorbing material, as reported by both ADA and Jane's Information Services, and internal weapons bays. During this stage came the implementation of new, refined air intakes. These new intakes, known as diverterless supersonic intakes, or DSIs, with a serpentine or S-shaped inlet, reduce the visibility of the engine's fan blades from the front. This is important, as fan blades can show up prominently on radar. In fact, in some modern aircraft such as the F-16, another aircraft's fan blades can be identified on radar and run through an onboard database to identify the aircraft type, usually known as non-cooperative target recognition, which is used when identification friend or foe transponders fail. Within the airframe, much was done to save weight. A fly-by-optic system was...
The F-16 thing is important because what are the two rivals of India? It's China and Pakistan. Pakistan has a lot of F-16, right? Usually in recent conflicts, there have been conflicts with India, F-16s were constantly involved through Pakistan things, whether identified or non-identified because of this.
Developed, which replaced a variety of sensor wiring with fiber optical cables. The radar is also reported to be somewhat new, a modified version of the domestically produced ASA radar. This series of domestically made radars are currently being tested on other Indian Air Force aircraft, namely the HAL Tejas, a delta wing fighter, with plans to eventually adapt it to the HAL TED-BF, MiG-29, and Flanker. India's current ambition is not unlike Turkey's. As we discussed in the TF Khan video, Turkey's ambition is to shift away from foreign reliance and towards domestic self-sufficiency, militarily at least. In the shorter term, their goal is to develop a number of domestic aircraft, including trainers, attack and utility helicopters, and multi-role aircraft.
self-reliance is really good on many fronts. Not just that you won't get caught between two powers or something. Not just that, but even for the other people, it's good, right? Because if you're not self-reliant, right, you're asking somebody other powers help, right? Now that other power might have their own issues with helping, right? Look at with the USA and Ukraine. USA is helping obviously Ukraine, but USA can't just point a blank help and put troops there and something like that, right? So if you're self-reliant in a lot of way, right, other powers don't get involved. If other powers don't get involved, right, there is no like grouping mentality that happened in World War One, right? World War One happened mostly. It was World War mostly because of these alliances. One needed another, another needed another, and there you go. It's like groups created. If you're self-reliant, you can solve your own conflict. It doesn't escalate from there on.
In much the same way, it appears that India is aiming at an improved level of domestic sustainability. This makes perfect sense, as both Turkey and India find themselves at a crossroads between East and West. Geopolitically, their situation makes it difficult to project ambitions when relying on other nations in uncertain times, when power and alliances can quickly shift. Just as with Turkey's TF fighter, another challenge in India is domestic engine production. In 2021, it was announced that the project was aiming for a joint venture to develop a semi-native engine, and in 2023, it was revealed that this engine development would likely occur under a joint India-France partnership known as Horizon 2047. By 2023, after 7 years of development, it was announced that the AMCA design phase had been completed. In 2024, the prototype development project was given the equivalent of US $1.9 billion to produce 5 working prototypes of the current iteration of the design. This was confirmed by the Indian Defence Research and Development Organisation, or DRDO, with the expectation that the first prototype would be completed by 2027, with the first flight to be undertaken roughly 1 year after the rollout. This is slightly later than initially expected. In 2020, it was reported that the first flight was planned for either 2024 or 2025. As it currently
So in service, I think we won't see this plane unless conflict starts in like 2033, 2035, right? Yeah, I don't think it won't be operational until. So basically, when like USS 6th generation will be operational around that same time, I think India will use 5th generation. I guess it makes sense how linear things go in that way. I was concerned, not gonna lie. Like I said, nobody told me in the comments. There are very keen people who are up to date with things like that. I find like that in my comments all the time. India said no to Su-57. China developed their own 5th generation by peculiar means, acquired technology and developed their own 5th generation. And now they are giving that to Pakistan. I'm like, oh, come on, I get it. Like India is not really wealthy, right? But we are top 5 economies. I mean, we have to have something like 5th generation. I'm glad this is underway, because without this, it would be like big hole in the defense.
stands, the Mark I variant of the aircraft will be powered by 2 General Electric F414 engines, which produce 90 kilonewtons of power. In the future, the Mark II variant will see these 2 engines replaced by the more powerful domestic or joint venture design, which aims to produce 110 kilonewtons. As mentioned in the TF Khan video, domestically producing engines from scratch, or even with some help, is no small task.
Yeah.
Most of the world looks to either America or Russia for engines. The primary issue is not...
We take engine to... I mean, I'm pausing too much. Comment down if you don't like me pausing too much, because it's like, I don't know why, like what to do, not to do. Comments is usually my go-to thing. Sometimes people do complain if I pause too much, sometimes don't. Sometimes I don't pause too much. People like, you just watch the video. Like, if you find I'm pausing too much, definitely comment down. But yeah, engines are no joke, right? I've been a car guy a long time. Engines are engines, right? And I know in like car industry, engines are such a big deal that you need like something like a decade or more for proper development. So people just use like their own engine that are like multiple decades old, or like somebody else's engine. Like there's barely few engines walking around, right? Most of the engines we have today, right, in a lot of like good enough companies are usually rover engines, right? There was one rover engine that was like good enough that they just used it, and since then many other companies are just using it, some version of it, right? So engines are no joke. Trying to create engine from scratch will take a long time, and approval will take a long time as well. So when it comes to like jet engines or tank engines, same thing applies. So engine is like really complicated thing. It's engine, right? It's literally heart of the thing. It's engine. That will take time.
Not power or capability, but also reliability and longevity. The F414 engine currently being employed by India in various capacities is a tested engine. So while the on-paper ambitions may be high for a domestically built engine, unless it matches the reliability and precision engineering of the GE engine, it would generally be perceived as a better option to go with the tested, less powerful engine than a more powerful engine potentially prone to failures and increased maintenance requirements. Current plans pin the first production AMCA for 2029, with the goal of producing 125 aircraft. The Mark I variant will be used to equip 2 squadrons, while the Mark II will equip a further 5. So how well is the aircraft expected to perform? Given that much of the project remains relatively classified and that the aircraft is still in a prototyping phase, we will have to speculate from data published by Janes. The first and most obvious element to gauge is general performance. Like many 5th-gen concepts, it has been announced that the AMCA will likely have supercruise capabilities. At full power, it will be capable of achieving a top speed of Mach 2.1.
I mean, at full power, yeah, not at super cruise, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it has to have ability to super cruise. Otherwise, what stealth you have, right? I mean, what 5th generation? Yeah, what ability? I hope it beats China, right? And why do I think it might beat China? Because China is doing the thing all their own, right? Because of communistic reasons. India is like getting help from France and I don't know, many other countries or something. Even in the dark, like sliding down the door type of way from USA or something. Who knows? We can never know in the background what's happening. So to me, it feels like it should beat China. Imagine if it beats China. Obviously, it will beat Russia, so Su-57, because China's is better than that in stealth way, right? Like radar cross-section. But if it beats China in that way, and not to mention any other capability, that would be insane. I mean, ISRO, every time I'll just refer to ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, right? Whatever they did is like insane, right? Many other global powers, right, couldn't be able to do what India has done like that, right? So that gives me somewhat strength, like, maybe we can pull this off. Who knows?
1.4. If this number is true, it would make it substantially faster than most other 5th-gen designs. The F-35, KF-21, Su-75, J-31 and TF-CAN all have a claimed speed of around Mach 1.8, with only...
Yeah, but the F-22 has much higher, right?
Only China's J-20 coming close at Mach 2.0. In terms of altitude, the claimed service ceiling will be around 65,000 feet, slightly higher than most 5th-gen designs, but not by too much. Again, this number must be taken with a grain of salt, given that the aircraft's working prototype is not yet complete.
I mean, these are all wish list, right? I'm an Indian, right? And I'm saying that this is wish list. I don't know like how close we're going to get to this. But if we can, that would be insane. US's F-35 doesn't go at that speed because they don't want to, right? Because they already have F-22 doing that air dominance thing, right? F-22 pretty sure can go like 2.5 Mach or something, right? That's somewhat like that speed.
Perhaps the most impressive claims are in regards to the aircraft's range. It is listed as being capable of achieving a ferry range of over 5,000 kilometers, while having a combat range of around 1,600 kilometers. This effective combat range makes it a match for the flanker, while also supposedly outperforming the combat ranges for the F-35 and KF-21. In terms of armament, the AMCA is listed as being capable of carrying up to 14,300 pounds of munitions. As with all 5th-gen designs, this can be broken down into internal and external stores. Internally, 3,300 pounds of munitions can be held. Hypothetically, this would allow for something like 6 Mk-82 or FAB 500s, or a single Mk-83 with 2 Mk-82s. There are also an unconfirmed number of external hardpoints, allowing for a further 11,000 pounds of weapons. In contrast, the Sukhoi 30 Mki can carry roughly 18,000 pounds, the F-15E 23,000 pounds, and a similarly sized aircraft, the F-35, 18,000 pounds. The AMCA's smaller stores capacity may limit its payload delivery, although it may not impact overall mission effectiveness. To exemplify this, the similarly sized F-16C can, on paper, carry 6 air-to-ground weapons on its 2 inner pylons. If triple clustered pylons are attached, along with a further 2 pylons holding 2 air-to-ground weapons each, plus 4 outward pylons for air-to-air missiles. Although tasking with this level of firepower is unlikely, most F-16s tasked with air-to-ground missions carry 2 to 4 AG weapons, leaving space for drop tanks on the 2 inboard pylons. This would likely keep AG stores at or below 4,000 pounds. Thus, an argument can be made for or against the internal stores limitation of the fighter. although in practice it likely won't have any detrimental effect. In terms of specific armament types, it has been determined that, similar to the TF-Kaan, the aircraft will be built around a number of indigenous systems currently in the works.
Yeah, Asram missile, Tara missile, I can already say it. BrahMos, there you go.
This includes a variety of precision-guided munitions and laser-guided bombs, as well as several air-to-ground missiles. In terms of standoff weapons, the aircraft will use a variety of infrared and active radar-guided missiles referred to as Astra, a domestically produced family of missiles. Not much is known about the true capabilities of the Astra, although the Indian Air Force began adopting early variants of the missile in 2017, while further variants which will be found on the AMCA are still under development. Other ambitious claims have...
Yeah, we've seen many, different militaristic ambitions rise up since Modi came to power. You can whether you like Modi or don't like Modi, you like the military power rise or not. The point is, you can't really speculate what if some other guy came into power, would he have done the same thing or not? But I know one thing, Modi is really capitalistic type of mentality, business first. And that kind of mentality usually rises in military power as well, because you have to show force like that as well. So he has BrahMos missile, this missile, that missile, funding to ISRO. It's gone really high up, and it will pay off, I feel in 2-3 decades, right? India should be much behind than they are right now in terms of military things like this, right? Because if you really look at China has been in rise since 90s or something. India doesn't have that kind of case. China has communistic approach, so it doesn't have to go through all the democratic paper and everything. It's not slow, so China can rapidly rise up. India has not the same thing. Not to mention, India didn't have one child policy, so India has 1.4 billion people now. China has much bigger land mass, and we are more in population than China. And India is rising this way is already surprising. It makes me think, what if there's a point we stagnate and actually drop? Usually statistics go like that, so that's the one thing I'm fearing. But yeah, so far things are looking fine. I don't know.
Been made regarding armament. Namely, India's Air Force chief stated that one of the goals of the AMCA is to integrate a variety of more modernized weapons, including drones, both models outfitted for swarm and wingman capabilities, alongside directed energy weapons, hypersonic missiles, and eventually high-altitude platform systems, or HAPS. This term generally refers to atmospheric pseudo-satellites, which can be launched from an aircraft and will sit on station at a high altitude and provide utilities like communication or
ISRO
observation.
doesn't need help, it can just send satellites.
Also worth noting is the single-seat configuration. In the 80s and 90s, aircraft designs seemed to tend away from twin-seat setups, as more faith was put into automated systems. Today, however, we see many designers choosing to revert to a twin-seat setup. The Chengdu J-20, for example, initially a single-seat aircraft, is now being...
Yeah, the technology will replace it. Has technology arrived? No. Okay, fine, let's put 2 seats.
being developed into a twin-seat multi-role aircraft, while South Korea's KF-21 also features a twin-seat setup. The reasons for this are multifaceted. Thanks to films like Top Gun, most are aware that the Radar Intercept Officer, RAO, or Weapon Systems Officer, WSO, were important, and the role went beyond calling out nails or spikes on the radar warning receiver. In practice, the RIO or WSO would take care of a variety of information-intensive systems, including targeting pods, electronic countermeasures and radar specifics, and of course keeping an eye on the radar warning receiver and generally helping the guy in the front seat.
You know what surprises me about Top Gun is that they had to use F-18 because it's twin-seater, right? And some proper pilot has to fly it, and Tom Cruise has to pretend to fly it. But Tom Cruise is really anal about doing things himself. Surprised he didn't try to learn how to fly a jet and try to do it himself. I'm guessing government said, no, we're not giving you F-35 or something to fly. I don't care how good you are. You're Tom Cruise. You're not one of our pilots. I think that's what happened. I'm pretty sure he just went there okay, I can do training. I can fly F-22, F-35 myself and do some stunts. They basically just said, no, we're not doing that.
Today it is similar, but with an increasing focus on data link-related tasks, drone tasking, and other forms of cross-system networking both between air assets, as well as units or utilities on the ground, sea, and in the future, space. Working as a team has obvious advantages over single-handedly trying to manage a variety of systems. This would become obvious when a single-seater aircraft, such as an F-16, is tasked with a particular mission in an uncertain environment. For example, a precision strike in contested airspace. With 2 multifunction displays, he would have to keep an eye on a targeting pod or AG radar on one, and likely a HSD with data link on the other. Pilots are well trained to do this, but could this be done better and safer by dividing the task between 2 rather than 1? With all this in mind, it is easy to see just how ambitious this project is. It seems to have more in common with Turkey's TF Khan than it does with the KF-21. Both projects have certainly put much more on the line. The TF Khan aims to replace the F-16, and the AMCA aims to replace the Flanker H, both with designs essentially starting from scratch. Both the F-16 and the Flanker represent great designs dating back to the 1970s, with hundreds of thousands of hours of flight time, research and improvements accrued over the decades, all built with the best Russian and American minds emerging from World War II. It's commendable, to say the least.
Pressure of Cold War. What if a nuke is coming up our ass? That's what the fear was. And when that kind of fear comes, look at F-15. Oh my God, that MiG-25 is too powerful. No, it's not. It's really not. I mean, it's powerful for what it's supposed to do, not for a dogfight. And that it's like F-15 was better than that fictional F-20, MiG-25, dogfighting plane which didn't existed. It was like interceptor. But F-15 is better than that. There you go. That's what happens when you're like afraid.
That countries such as South Korea, Turkey and India are aiming to produce something domestically in a bid to outperform these legendary designs. This sort of ambition may be seen as misguided, but both South Korea and Turkey have working concepts already in the air. The next decade is going to be very interesting to watch as these domestic projects mature.
It's not misguided. India has to. When are people really, you need to understand when it comes to India? We have to. It's about survival. we are bordered by China and Pakistan. Pakistan might as well be China light at this point. How much they're debt in China, and China is just giving them their like 5th generation plane, this and that, right? We are against 2 Chinas basically, China light and China big. And China is like already like a Indian Ocean is our type of mentality, trying to dominate, putting bases in Sri Lanka, which is literally touching India. You can see Sri Lanka from India visibly. You can just look over the horizon, that's Sri Lanka there. That is insane. We have to do this. It's about fucking survival right now, right? And I feel like, when it comes to 5th generation for India, the goals will be a bit different, because our goals usually like ends up being like a Himalayan range and things like that. Obviously, when like war escalates, war will come to Indian Ocean as well, right? But I'm pretty sure like when it comes to like open ocean, like fighting will be a bit different. But mostly 5th generation is going to be like mountain ranges, right? Because if you're trying to do like precision strike and things, you will go through mountain regions if you're attacking China. Most of the China that is bordering India and all the way deep inside, all the way to half of the China is mountainous, right? Only northeastern area of China is like mostly habitable, like flat. Most of the, from the center to the west, all the way to north and close to the Himalayas is all like mountainous. It is surprising. Most of the China is mountainous that way. So not that those places are not populated. Those places are populated enough by military things. Those are important places. So if fight does happen, it will happen in mountainous area. So this 5th generation will be like tasked to do that. But yeah. Right, well, that was India's 5th gen aircraft, HAL AMCA. Hindustan basically just another word for India, right? This is what Islamic states, Mughals basically long ago named India. Hindu as in Hindus, Hindustan as in Hindu nation basically. India is the English name, proper native name is Bharat. So there are like 3 names now. India, because of Indus River, how Westerners give us the name, that's what we're using at global scale. India, Hindustan by Islamic State, and an actual ancient name that basically is like national name, even in the national anthem, is Bharat. So there you go. All right, I'll see you next time.